All right, let's jump right in, ready for a deep dive. This time, we're tackling management styles and how to lead a team effectively.
Yeah, always a fascinating topic.
For sure. We're going to be using pasted text
Yeah.
as our main source, especially that section on, well, management styles.
Right.
So imagine this. You're suddenly the one in charge. What's your go-to move? How would you inspire your team, get those amazing results?
It's funny, right? You could be a dictator, a total collaborator,
Yeah.
or somewhere in between.
Totally. So many ways to approach it.
And the thing is, there isn't one right way. It's more like a whole range of styles, each with its own, pluses and minuses.
Blue range, huh?
Yeah, like a continuum from like super controlling, the autocratic style, all the way to completely hands off. That'd be laissez-faire.
Continuum, that's a good way to put it. Okay, so let's start with that my way or the highway approach, the autocratic style, right?
Exactly. That's where the manager, they hold all the cards, calls the shots, gives the orders, and the team, well, they just follow.
No questions asked.
Not really. Surprisingly, though, it can be really effective, like in a crisis, when decisions need to be made, like that fast.
Oh, yeah, I get that. Like a fire alarm goes off, everyone needs to know what to do right away. No time for like a team huddle.
Exactly. Or picture a brand new team. They're just starting out, still figuring things out.
Right. So that structure, it makes sense sometimes.
Yeah, it gives them that clear direction, those expectations. But here's the thing, too much of it, and it can backfire big time.
How so?
It can totally stifle creativity. People feel like their ideas don't matter. They get resentful. And when that happens, morale takes a nosedive, conflicts start popping up.
Yeah, I can see that. It's like if someone's always telling you what to do, not even listening to your thoughts,
Right, exactly.
you might do the task, but you're not going to be, excited about it.
You hit the nail on the head. So let's move along our continuum a bit. Next up is the persuasive style.
Persuasive.
Yeah, still top down, but there's a bit more effort to get the team on board.
So instead of just giving orders, the manager tries to explain the why, the reasoning behind it,
Exactly. It's like, look, I've thought about all the options, and this is why this one's the best.
trying to get everyone to buy in, even if they didn't have a say in the decision itself. Interesting.
It can work. I mean, it definitely builds a bit more trust than, just being straight up autocratic. But still, there's that lack of real input from the team.
Right, I see. So even if you understand the decision, you might not be fully invested in it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It kind of highlights the limits of those top-down approaches, even with some persuasion thrown in. But things start to shift when we get to the consultative style.
Okay, so this is where the team finally gets a voice, right? You mentioned earlier that managers actually seek out their input before making decisions.
They do. They really value those different perspectives. They'll hold meetings, send out surveys, whatever it takes to get those ideas flowing.
So instead of, this is how we're doing it, it's more like, what do you all think?
Yeah, much more like that. And it has some serious benefits. Like, you get more creative solutions when everyone's ideas are on the table.
Makes sense. And when people feel heard, they're going to be more motivated to actually, make it happen.
For sure. Ownership, motivation, it all goes up. Plus, you often catch potential problems way earlier, so things go a lot smoother.
Sounds great, but I'm guessing there's a flip side too. Nothing's perfect, right?
You're right about that. One downside is, well, making decisions can take longer.
Makes sense. If you need an answer fast, asking everyone for feedback, it's going to slow things down.
Exactly. So it's about finding that balance. And another thing, you got to manage expectations. If you're always asking for input, but then ignoring it.
Yeah, that's not going to fly. You need to show that you actually value what the team has to say and that you're willing to actually use their ideas.
Absolutely. But now imagine taking that collaborative spirit even further. That brings us to the participative style.
Participative. Okay. This sounds interesting. What's this power sharing all about?
This is where managers and employees, they're more like partners. Decisions are made together. Everyone's expertise is valued. It's really collaborative.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I bet the team feels really, really good about that.
Oh, they do. It builds incredible relationships because everyone feels respected, valued, and their motivation through the roof.
Because they're actually shaping the direction of the team, right?
Exactly. And it's a fantastic opportunity for everyone to, learn new skills, develop their talents.
You're constantly challenged. You got to defend your ideas, work together. Yeah, that'll make you grow for sure.
Totally. But even with all the good stuff, there are some challenges to this style too.
I figured. What are we talking about?
Well, for one thing, making decisions. It can take a lot longer. You've got all these different opinions, perspectives.
Right. So reaching a consensus, it's going to take time. And without someone, a strong leader to guide the process.
It could easily turn into, endless debate. You need that balance, that freedom to speak your mind, but also make sure things are actually getting done. And that leads us to the final style on our continuum, the laissez-faire approach.
This is the one all about trust and autonomy, right? The manager sets the goals, but the team has total freedom to figure out how to reach them.
Think of it like a research lab. You've got the lead scientist, they set the research question. But the individual researchers, they have total freedom to design their experiments, do their work.
So it's like, here's where we're going. You figure out the best route to get there. Super empowering, but also sounds a bit risky.
It is. It can unleash some incredible creativity, ownership, but only, and this is key, only if you've got a team that's already highly skilled, self-motivated.
They'll be able to manage themselves, stay focused, even without someone constantly looking over their shoulder.
Exactly. Because if they can't, well, that lack of structure, it can lead to chaos. Projects go off track, deadlines get missed, conflicts pop up because everyone's doing their own thing.
Like a jazz band, where everyone's playing their own solo at the same time. Some cool moments, but not exactly a cohesive sound.
Yeah, perfect analogy. So we've got these 5 distinct styles, each with their own, strengths and weaknesses.
Right. But before we jump into which one might be the best one, let's talk about Daniel Goleman for a minute. He's a psychologist, done tons of work on leadership.
Oh, yeah.
He's got a fascinating take on all this, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. He observed that the most effective leaders, they don't just stick to one style. They adapt. They switch it up depending on what's happening, throughout the week, even throughout the day.
Wait, hold on. So instead of picking one and sticking with it, they're going back and forth between all of them. Tell me more.
Right.
So instead of picking one and sticking with it, they're going back and forth between all of them. Tell me more.
It's kind of like a chef. A good chef doesn't just use one knife, right?
Right.
They've got a whole set, each one for a specific job. They know when to use the paring knife for the delicate stuff, and when they need that big cleaver.
Okay, so a good leader's like a master chef, using different management styles depending on what they're trying to cook up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what kind of situations call for different approaches, right?
Yeah, exactly. What are those factors that come into play?
Well, it depends on the task, what you're actually trying to achieve. The team's experience level and even the company culture plays a big role.
Okay, let's break those down. We talked about how the autocratic style, that can be good for training new employees, especially if things are like really fast-paced.
Right.
But what if you've got a team of like seasoned professionals? They're working on a really complex project.
Then you might want to go with something more collaborative, like the participative approach. You want to tap into their expertise, let them really own their work, encourage those great ideas.
Right, so it's not just about the task itself, but also who you're working with. What about the company culture piece? How does that fit in?
It's huge. Think about a tech startup, right? Really innovative. Things move fast. They might have a more relaxed, laissez-faire vibe.
Right.
But a traditional company, very hierarchical, they might lean towards more consultative.
So finding that balance between giving people freedom and having some structure, that's key.
It is. It's about understanding the context. What makes sense in this particular environment? And that's where Goleman's idea of adaptability, it's really powerful.
Right.
A good manager, they can read the room, understand what's needed, and adjust their style. It's not about being rigid, sticking to one approach.
It's about being flexible.
Exactly. Responsive to the team, to the project, to whatever's going on. So we've covered a lot, haven't we? 5 key management styles, the pros and cons, this idea of adapting your approach.
We have. But let's zoom out for a second. Why does any of this matter? What's a takeaway for our listener?
Well, think about it. Understanding these styles, it can be really empowering. It gives you this framework to look at your own experiences, whether you're the leader or part of the team.
Right. So if you've always felt like micromanaged, held back, maybe you realize you thrive under a more participative or laissez-faire style.
Exactly. Or if you're a manager struggling to motivate your team, maybe it's time to bring in some more collaborative elements. The point is there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
It's about figuring out what works best in each situation and having that flexibility to adapt.
Couldn't have said it better myself. The best managers, they create an environment where their team can truly thrive.
This has been so insightful. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of how teams work, how different leadership styles can impact everything.
I'm glad to hear that. And remember, this is just the starting point, right? Now it's about applying this knowledge, thinking about your own experiences, maybe even experiment a little, see what works for you, for your team.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave our listener with one last thought. We've talked about these five distinct styles, but what if the future of leadership is actually about blurring those lines?
Blurring the lines, what do you mean?
I'm thinking, what if managers could blend elements of all these styles, create something totally new, perfectly tailored to their team and whatever the business needs?
That's interesting. So it's less about fitting into these predefined boxes and more about being fluid, adaptive.
Exactly, like creating a symphony of leadership. All these different instruments or styles coming together.
It challenges us to really think outside the box, to embrace new possibilities, to keep evolving, so we can create those thriving, productive work environments.
I like that. It's like we're doing our own little experiment right here, right now.
And who knows, maybe this deep dive will spark some amazing new ideas, inspire the next generation of amazing leaders. Pretty exciting, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. So let's bring it back to you, our listener. If you were building a team from scratch, how would you approach this? How would you blend these styles to create that perfect environment? So let's bring it back to you, our listener. If you were building a team from scratch, how would you approach this? How would you blend these styles to create that perfect environment?
It's tough, right? Lots to consider. Would you be more collaborative at first, like for brainstorming and stuff?
Right.
Then maybe switch to more directive when deadlines are looming?
Yeah, or maybe some team members, they thrive on that laissez-faire approach, give them freedom to innovate. But others, maybe they need more structure. It really depends on the individuals, the project itself.
It does. There's no magic formula. The key is to really understand those strengths and weaknesses of each style and then almost like use them as tools, you know?
Like when you're first building the team, maybe you start with Autocratic or Persuasive to give them clear direction, get everyone on the same page. But then as they gain experience, get more confident, you can gradually move to a more consultative or participative approach.
Yeah, let them take ownership, contribute their ideas.
And then you've got those rock stars, the ones who they thrive on autonomy, proven track record, they get things done. Maybe a touch of laissez-faire is all they need.
Exactly. It's almost like conducting an orchestra. You wouldn't lead every section the same way, right? You adjust based on the instrument, the musician, what kind of sound you're going for.
That's a great analogy. There's
Great.
so many possibilities. The challenge is finding that perfect harmony for your team, for your specific situation.
Yeah, it's both the challenge and the exciting part.
This has been so eye-opening. I think the biggest thing I'm taking away, and hopefully our listener is too, is that there isn't one perfect leadership style. It's about being flexible, adapting as you go.
It is, and about never stopping learning, reflecting on what's working, what's not, experimenting a little.
And at the end of the day, the best leaders, they create that environment where everyone feels valued, respected, where people can do their best work.
Absolutely. So keep exploring, keep learning, and keep evolving your approach to leadership.
And who knows, maybe you'll come up with some amazing hybrid style that blows everyone away. If you do, you want to hear about it. Keep diving deep into this fascinating world of leadership. And until next time, keep leading with intention.